Hello, everybody, and welcome back to more political chatter. Today, we will be talking about my updated 2024 presidential election prediction between who we now do know for basically sure will be the nominees. That being Joe Biden of the Democratic Party, Donald Trump of the Republicans, and of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. running as an independent. Since my last election prediction in December or November, whenever it was, we were still, the no states had voted in the Republican contests, right? Trump didn't sweep Iowa, and he didn't win New Hampshire by 11. And, we didn't know how South Carolina would play out. Now we basically do. So, but now that a lot of that has changed, Joe Biden won his write-in campaign in New Hampshire, so I don't think we're going to see any surprises in the Democratic primary. Donald Trump really has this in the bag. He won Iowa by a lot. He won New Hampshire by double digits, and he's on track to sweep Nevada, of course, but South Carolina as well, Nikki Haley's home state. So that race is basically over. And then Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as for him, he is still working on ballot access. He's currently only on the ballot in Utah, but he said that he has met the requirements for, I think it was definitely New Hampshire and I think Maine as well. It was New Hampshire and some other state. I forget. I think it was Maine, though. So, so we can move on to the general election, right? We are past this primary process. We always figured, not always, but for a very long time now, more than a year now, we were pretty sure that it would be Biden versus Trump versus Kennedy, and that is exactly how it has played out. So, with that being said, let's get started with the safe Democratic states, that being California, Oregon, Washington, not Oregon actually, California, Washington, Hawaii, Washington, D.C., Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maryland, Delaware, um, Connecticut, Vermont, and Maine's 1st Congressional District. Moving on to safe Republican states, sorry, that is Utah, probably, but Kennedy will do very well there. But it won't get closer between 15 points. Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska at large. Nebraska's 1st. Nebraska's 3rd. Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, West Virginia, and Indiana, and probably South Carolina as well. So after safe states, Kennedy has none. That puts Trump at 116, Joe Biden at 112. Very rarely, almost never, do we have, in my election predictions. Oh, I forgot one. Obviously, that's why it's all messed up. It's because I forgot to say New York. So Biden does take the lead. He has 140 electoral votes to Trump's 116. So after safe states, Biden is put at a 24 electoral vote lead, um, but New York could honestly go below a 15-point margin. Trump is targeting the state in 2024, and that one actually could be one to watch. But regardless, it's probably going to stay safe. So let's move on to likely states now. These states will be decided by a 5 to 15% margin, so a little closer. Oregon, Colorado, um, probably New Mexico, just because they did have quite a swing from 2016 to 2020, um, and, in favor of the Democrats. So they really turned away from Trump, and they would probably stay that way. Colorado is just very Democratic these days. New Jersey New Jersey and Illinois are two very Democratic states, but I don't think they would quite be safe, but pretty close. Um, Maine at large is not likely, um, and I would say Virginia because Kennedy does take a lot of votes in the more western part of the state, the more rural areas, coal country a little bit here, and Kennedy does take therefore a lot of votes away from Trump, so that could hurt Trump there, and Virginia does probably go to Biden by more than 5 points. So now let's move on to likely Republican states for Trump. Texas is definitely one. This one does trend a little bit to the right. Kennedy Kennedy doesn't have much effect here, but he if he does get on the ballot, we don't even know if he's going to get on the ballot in all these states. So, but as for Texas, he won it by 5.6 in 2020. It's definitely not going to narrow up the border crisis. Absolutely hurts Biden a lot. Um, and yeah, I think that Trump definitely benefits from that. Hispanic Latino voters are turning away from Biden and the Democrats in very strong numbers. That is what Trump will have to look for in swing states like Nevada and Arizona, Florida, I guess, if you call it a swing state in 2024. Kansas will be very close to being safe, but not quite there because it is trending a bit to the left. Then, of course, Florida. This famously flipped to Trump in 2016, and then he only expanded. Only like five or so states shifted to the right in 2020, in 2016 to 2020. Florida being one of them, and not even like a super small fraction of a percentage point amount. No, it shifted to the left 2.5 points or something, or it shifted to the right. Sorry. So this has become a very Republican state in just so little time. And of course, Ron DeSantis famously won here a re-election in 2022 by 20%. So Latinos are in Florida are trending to the right so much, and Democrats are doomed here for years to come. Iowa and Ohio too. Trump made these states very partisan for the Republicans. I don't think that he will have any trouble winning them again, if not safe. These margins, but they're definitely not getting closer than likely. Um, let's move on here. Um, Likely Republican states, I would say, I believe that would be it. Um, Yeah, I guess. I mean, North Carolina really could be likely, but I will play it safe here. Or should I? I mean, North Carolina did vote for Trump by just under a point in 2020, but I don't know. I don't know if Biden really could what we wait, what's the word? Weaken that much. All right, moving on to lean states. So these states, I believe, will be decided by a 1 to 5% margin. So now we're getting very close. These are the key swing states. Um, Starting with Biden, of course. I think that Minnesota does stay under his belt. It shifted like 7 points to the left in 2020. They definitely turned away from Trump a lot. Democrats have performed well here in statewide elections in 2022. I think that it just has become a more partisan state. I think that more independent voters here who used to be swing, back in the Obama, Romney, McCain era that used to swing back and forth, I think that they are now solidly with the Democrats. That is what recent results have shown us. So I would think that Minnesota does stay with Biden by a few points in 2020. Um, let's see. This is very tough now. Um, New Hampshire. I mean, a poll came out not too long ago, showed Nikki Haley winning New Hampshire and Biden or Trump actually getting crushed by 7. The state, like Minnesota, did shift just about 7 points to the left in 2020. In 2022, Democrats did very well here. I think that if Biden can run a strong enough campaign and Trump doesn't focus too much on New Hampshire, I think that Biden can win. Just a little bit ago, just my last election prediction, I think I had New Hampshire actually going to Trump, but I would have to change that prediction now. I think that it would stay with Biden after recent polling and everything. Um, and yeah, and I mean, independents here. I mean, so many independents who voted in the Republican primary said that they would vote for Biden if the general election. Sorry, Haley voters. I think I forgot to mention. So many independent Haley voters, but voted for Haley in the primary, said that they would vote for Biden in the general election over Trump. I think that might be the case in quite a few states. Maine at large does get close because Kennedy polls a lot of progressive Democrats and Republicans as well in Maine's second congressional district, so that Kennedy factor. Maine might be his best state, but yeah, whatever. I think that Maine at large does stick with Biden. Um, let's see now. Okay, Nebraska's second. Biden shouldn't have too much trouble winning. It is a pretty Democratic area, but he shouldn't be too worried about this one. As long as he runs a good suburban appealed campaign, he really needs to win these suburbs. There, Pennsylvania, quite a few states, Arizona. Um, I guess we will move on to lean Trump states now, and there are kind of a lot. North Carolina voted for him by a point. That only shifts to the right. I mean, Biden isn't improving his numbers in North Carolina. Black voters are going to play a very key part in this election, and many are staying home for Biden. Many are leaving Biden actually for Kennedy. They like what Kennedy says about how the two parties have not, the two parties have, especially the Democratic Party, have just been taking them for granted as voters for so long now. They especially like, from what I've heard, that he says about vaccines, because there are I don't know, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but apparently there are a lot of um whatever, ineffective or messed up vaccines among the African American community. And Kennedy, of course, talks a lot about that. He's against a lot of vaccines. So Georgia and North Carolina, I think flipped, or Georgia is key because that flips to Trump. And I don't know, I think that Biden will lack a lot in Atlanta. Not necessarily the suburbs, which carried him to victory in 2020, but the Atlanta voters, which he, of course he will take for granted. I think that many of them will leave him for Kennedy if Kennedy does target them well enough, and that would result in a Trump victory. Um, I think that Wisconsin, considering that it was the state that voted for Trump by the most in 2016 of the blue wall, and of the blue wall that voted for Biden by the smallest amount, I think that Trump is favored to win here. I mean, Biden's economy has not been great. Lots of people blame him. I mean, they do associate, him taking the presidency with with prices going up and everything. And all these blue state, or the blue wall states, but especially Wisconsin, with these lower class blue collar workers, where the economy is their number one priority, most important issue in voting. I think that Biden will definitely hurt from that. And a state like Wisconsin will flip back to Trump. I think that Maine second narrows up to a lean margin just because Kennedy is in the race. I think that Kennedy probably pulls second here. A little while ago, I actually had him winning, but since then he kind of has been losing ground. He doesn't really have that momentum like he used to. So I'd put that as a lean margin win. And Alaska, Kennedy does very well here. But this one actually does become close with Kennedy because he takes a lot of voters from both sides, Democrat and Republican, and especially with ranked choice voting, Kennedy could very well come out in second place overall um, in Alaska. But yeah, I mean, his strength among Democrats and Republicans would be able to propel him enough to make the state very close. But Trump still wins, probably. Okay, Nevada, if not lean, honestly, likely. This is a state, the New York Times poll, um, this state was a big shock in that poll. It had Trump up by 11 or 12 or something astonishing. But it really goes to show Biden's lack, or Latino voters, that lack of enthusiasm for Biden. I mean, he hasn't really targeted that community at all. He hasn't done anything to improve their lives. They are very much economy based voters. I mean, many are big fans of capitalism, since many of them and their ancestors came from communist countries to, of course, the capitalist United States. So naturally, they are very economy-driven voters, and they will associate Trump with a better economy than Biden. So Trump is at 267. He needs three more electoral votes to win. He could win any one of these three remaining states and he wins the election. Um, it is very tough. I am decided on Michigan and Pennsylvania. And I do know who will win Arizona, but I'm unsure what characterization to give it. But I do know now. So this is it for lean states. So Biden does still have a chance here. Trump is at 267 electoral votes. Biden is at 226. Kennedy at 0. So he's out of it, obviously. But Trump just needs one of the three states remaining, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or Arizona, and he wins the election. All three of which I think will be decided by a tilt margin. And Biden would need to win all three. Beginning with Biden. This might be a hot take, but I do think that Biden actually does win the state of Pennsylvania. I mean, based on my prediction here, I feel like people would, the rest of the map, I feel like people would not expect me to give Pennsylvania to him. But I think considering the fact that he is running a very suburban based campaign, I mean, he is really targeting, from what we've seen so far in his campaign, he is really targeting these suburban voters, with Roe v. Wade and everything like that. Trump's attack on democracy, that's a big thing too. I think that he will be able to pull out enough votes in the Philadelphia suburbs um, for him to pull out a narrow victory in a state like Pennsylvania, but it will definitely narrow up. He won it by just over a point in 2020. But also, Kennedy might play a bit of a factor here. Of course, we have these blue collar, and if my prediction is wrong, and Biden does win all three blue wall states, you can thank Kennedy for that because Kennedy will pull the working class blue collar workers away from Trump in all these three swing states because they voted for Trump in 2016 because he was the drain the swamp outsider candidate. Well, now that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's not so much Donald Trump. So I think that we could see if Kennedy's messaging is successful, I think that we could see many blue collar workers, anti establishment, switch from Trump, who they would have voted for if Kennedy wasn't in the race, to Kennedy. And just that little bit could sway such a swing state like Pennsylvania. Um, However, I know this is weird to have Pennsylvania blue and Michigan actually red, but I do think that's the case. I think that Trump does pull out a narrow win in Michigan, and it really does come down to um, Biden's handling of the war in Gaza. I mean, there's a very prominent Arab American community in Michigan completely turning against Joe Biden. I mean, none of them are voting for Biden after his support for Israel in this war in Gaza. Um, so they are turning away from him. There's a whole abandoned Biden campaign, of course, the whole genocide Joe thing. And he is basically doomed when it comes to Arab Americans in a state like Michigan. Even though Kennedy, and this is the least blue collar worker type state of the blue wall, so Kennedy won't hurt Trump as much here as Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And then Arizona, I definitely do think flips. But I mean, looking at how in New Hampshire we saw independents really turn out for Nikki Haley. That's who boosted her. And the vast majority, or not the vast majority, but most said that they would not vote, that they would vote for Biden over Trump in the general election. And in a state with so many independents like Arizona, I think that same situation will play out. I mean, Trump has not done anything to really um, try to get these, uh, more moderate Republican independents in Arizona. Right, so I do think that this one is very close, but considering how the entire country will swing to the right in 2020, and really just the lack of enthusiasm among voters for Joe Biden, I think that Donald Trump still would be able to win Arizona. So this is my final prediction, or not final, final prediction for January. I think that Trump will finish with 293 electoral votes if the election was held tomorrow. Joe Biden would have 245, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. 0. So thank you all for watching this video. Really hope you all enjoyed. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.